I'm gonna say with Victoria, one of my favorite songs. And correct me if this is wrong, but "Moment."
Oh,
I think that's
wow.
what it's called.
Yeah.
That's a to me that's a very staple song. Like this is true R&B. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like so.
Thank you.
Look at that love. Look at the love. I love the love. My name is Naima Cochrane, and welcome to Billboard's Hip Hop and R&B Summit. Today, we are talking about the next wave of R&B, and I have some of the new guard with me here. And I want to start with the question that I've been pondering for the past year. We went through several years where artists went to great lengths to avoid being called R&B acts. They would call themselves trap soul. They would call themselves soul noir. They would call themselves um, anything except actual R&B. So I'm wondering what the shift is. What has changed that now it's okay again? Not only okay, but like we're embracing on a large level. We're embracing just the moniker and the genre of R&B. And I will go to either Tone or Victoria or Joyce, either one of y'all pick it up. Actually, Victoria, let's start with you because you've been writing and in the game for like a little while. So take that back. I actually would love to hear from you first.
I actually never really noticed that it wasn't okay to name yourself an R&B artist. I always figured that people were naming their music based on the subcategories of R&B because music has been such a merge of styles. Especially us having access to so much music, I feel like people are putting things together that they weren't able to do before. So I was thinking people were just naming their music really after what they feel was it was drawn from. But if it is in fact true that it's more okay for people to be R&B acts, quote unquote, I feel like maybe it has more to do with streaming and people trying to fit in a certain category. So if you want to do R&B now or certain playlists that are named specifically R&B titles, maybe you would lean more towards naming yourself a specific genre. But I really think music is such a mosh pit of different sounds, and I feel like it definitely all stems from R&B. So should be no shame in being an R&B artist ever.
What about you, Tone? I saw you laugh on that last note. What do you think?
I have heard the conversation of like people kind of like, oh yeah, like it's R&B, but it's trap. There's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that. But I feel like as a whole, just as people and this younger generation, they're now getting older. So I feel like right now there is a lot of trap, there's a lot of rap and hip hop and things like that. But we as people are growing and getting older and realizing like, yo, there's more to music than what's very popular right now. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's why R&B is having a huge comeback because people are really longing for that. They want that feeling. They want that love music. Well, no matter if it's love, if it's toxic, whatever it is, they really want that now. And I feel like everybody's getting older and now like searching for more. So.
Okay, and what about you, Joyce? What do you think?
I agree with Victoria. I feel like I haven't really heard that people were trying to avoid it. I do have friends who are singers who want to break out of this assumption that they do R&B because of the way they look or because they're a black singer, most of my friends. So I think that's the thing. It's just not making assumptions, not trying to compare or put people in a box, and just be open to the different style that they have or what they do.
But Tone, you touched on something I think is key, which is that R&B in 90s and early 2000s R&B especially is having a huge resurgence right now. We even saw it over the last year with the rise of verses and even the DJs doing classic sets on IG Live, etc. Samples are back, but samples are more in R&B now than hip hop, I would almost argue. But you said people were missing that vulnerability, right? Like the love music, even if it's toxic love music. You guys are all singer songwriters. Can you talk a little bit about like the lyrics? Like when that argument happened a couple of years ago, I'm not gonna name the artist, but somebody proclaiming themselves the new king R&B, and folks was like, you ain't even got that reach, right? Can you guys talk a little bit about the lyricism and what you're tapping into maybe from the past that you feel like is missing now?
It's just being 100% honest with yourself. Definitely like living your life through it and like really paying attention to what you go through day in and day out. There's been things that now I'm just writing about that happened like 3 years ago, but now I'm in a space where I'm like, yo, I can understand it to like the whole situation and what happened, and I could really tell a story with that. So I think the most important thing when it comes to lyrics and just being an R&B singer is just telling those stories and making sure it's coming from an honest place, because that's when you believe it. When you're on stage, you got to perform it, you got to sell it. So
I agree. I actually I'm loving hearing the creative ways people are expressing new things, because I feel like the more time goes on, the harder it gets to write a song that hasn't been written already. So I feel like this generation has been posed with the challenge to come up with more creative ways to say maybe the same things we were feeling in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Isn't it okay to write the same song? Like, is that off limits? Because like you said, there's been the same themes have always been the themes, right?
Yes, yes. I don't think that the goal is to write the same song. Maybe the heart of the song is the same, like the intention, the feeling, message. But it is, when I approach a song, I would love to, we're still human. We have the same expressions and feelings, but I feel like my challenge is to write things in a clever way, in a new way that I haven't heard. It could even be the same title, but some lyrics in there that feel like 2021 or future. Um, and then, but there is nothing wrong with writing about the same things that we felt before, because things are going to repeat itself.
Joyce, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me it's about one thing that I challenged while I was working on the album that I just put out that took me a few years to make was just being more vulnerable and open and honest about like what I had been through and being okay with, I guess, sharing that with the world. I think I got in the way of that. So that held me back from telling these stories and just owning however it is I want to express it. So I guess, yeah, being comfortable with what I have to say and how I want to say it. Once I let go of all of that, I was able to really come into my own.
Well, if you guys, and this kind of goes back to Victoria, what you just said about having the same kind of feelings and themes as the 60s, 70s, 80s. You guys are the new guard. I'm curious to know, for you, who's the old guard that you look up to? Like, who are the artists that you look to, and maybe you took something from that? Maybe you were like, I want a pen game like that. I want to be able to do some phrasing like that, or the way they communicate this part of, or this heartache, or what this love feels like, or that emotion. Who for each of you, who's like your kind of big homie, whether you know them or not, in R&B?
Ooh, um, for me, I would have to say across the board, I think this woman has influenced not only me but R&B as a genre, and that's Brandy. I feel like when we hear her vocal warmth, when we hear her tonality, the kind of production she was singing over that hadn't been done before, I feel like that's always a huge reference point for people who love R&B. Um, it's the vocals for me, and I feel like that's going to continue to be the case for years to come. Um, and a few other people that I love that wouldn't necessarily be just R&B, because I love them as well-rounded performers, is Beyonce. I love Sade. I love Janet. I love Aaliyah. So when I think of writing music and trying to perform it, those are my go-tos. I'm always looking up their performances, like what felt good, what did they do, what did the sound feel like, um, yeah, there's so many though. I feel like we need to also pay homage to the songwriters of the songs that we love. The artists are able to deliver it, but yeah, for sure, the songwriters really, they drive it home for everybody.
Do you guys? Well, first, I'm about to jump ahead of myself. I was gonna ask, do you guys think songwriting is a lost art? But first, let me ask Joyce and Tone, who are the, like, your kind of folks that you have looked up to and learned from, and then I'm gonna come back to ask you if you believe that songwriting is kind of a lost art.
It would be Brandy, just like what Victoria mentioned. Brandy, Aaliyah for sure, Missy Elliott, Usher, and like Victoria had mentioned, growing up, like I just would look up who was a part of the song. So like all the writers, like LaShawn Daniels, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, like I would look up everyone and then see their catalog and then kind of go from there into whole other great artists. But yes, Brandy with her tone and just I just felt like she approached records so differently than most, I guess, classic R&B artists.
For me, yeah, this is my music catalog is all over the place, but I gotta say, this is not R&B, but Bob Marley is like one of my favorite songwriters. Like maybe like a few years ago, I'll say like 2015, I really started getting into his catalog and like diving into it. And I was like, oh my god, the way this man is writing these songs is ridiculous. Like Victoria was saying, Sade. I love. You gotta love Lauryn Hill. You know what I'm saying? If you love R&B and if you're gonna sing, if you're gonna perform, you have to study Lauryn Hill. And yeah, the list could just go on and on and on. But yeah, there's people like that. Is the reason why I am who I am.
Okay, so Victoria, I'm gonna come back to you. You were talking about giving a shout out to the songwriters. Do you think that songwriting is a lost art?
No, I mean, if I look to my left and right, I would say no. I don't know about the radio, but I do feel like streaming services have um, given you more opportunity to discover different styles. And I don't want to say that it's lost. I do sometimes analyze what's the biggest hit, and I'm like, I've kind of heard a song that I would prefer, but I just think maybe it's just different. We're growing up in different times, and I'm sure in the 90s, maybe people that heard that music that was making music in the 70s was like, this isn't exactly how we used to do it, but we just have to roll with the times, and there's going to be different um, different things added and flavors to make the same dish. And I think that's maybe what makes things exciting is that we can hear differences and choose to or not to listen to those things. And the classics will always be there. We can always go back and listen to our our staples, our foundation. What I don't understand though, and I have to say, is rappers adding melody to their rap and calling it R&B. I don't I don't understand that one, but
No, I get that. Joyce, what about you?
I work with so many amazing songwriters, and I feel like she had mentioned, I think some of these top songs, sometimes I too wonder like, oh, I think other songs should get recognition or be in that category. But, I think people will hear it and it serves its duty of getting to the people who will appreciate it. So I look at it that way and it just challenges me to do better as a writer and try to give the writers even that I work with, the recognition that they deserve as well.
For me, it's I don't think songwriting is a lost art at all. To what Joyce is saying, like I've been working with a lot of different writers, a lot of different producers on this project I just put out and the projects that are going to come out. But it's incredible because you get all these different people in one room, or it could be one other person, but you get somebody else in a room, and you never know what their perspective is, what their approach is, like their creative process, and I think just like being able to create with somebody just triggers your creativity too, to make you think. It challenges you to think in a different way. It's like, yo, I didn't even see it that way, so it helps push you. But I don't think songwriting is a lost art at all. I think the music industry goes through a lot of phases. So things will be hot at times, and a lot of people will ride the wave. But I just think if you push the ball further and you just keep trying to be creative, like it's gonna stand out and it's gonna have its time.
somebody comes up to you, they just, I don't know, landed on earth, they haven't listened to music in 30 years, they came out from under a rock, something, and they said, I want you to play me 2 songs that give me an idea of what current R&B, current contemporary R&B music sounds like. What 2 songs are you playing them?
You gonna start with me? You gonna throw that curveball? I gotta say, I love. I would play hers, Damage, because I think
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge record. And
And a great bridge record, right? Because you got the
yeah,
Jimmy Jam and Terry Making Love in the Rain
right.
sample, her Robert sample in there, so it's great, old and new.
Exactly. You got
Yeah.
some of the '90s in it, and I'm gonna say with Victoria, one of my favorite songs. And correct me if this is wrong, but "Moment."
Oh, wow.
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
That's a to me that's a very staple song. Like this is true R&B. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like so.
Thank you.
Look at that love. Look at that love. I love the love.
Support. Gotta show
Thank
support.
you. I was able to decide on one, but there's so many great songs. But I feel like what the first thing that came to my mind when you asked that question was best part, her and Daniel Caesar. I feel like it's such a timeless song. It sounds like it could be played at any wedding, at the end of any great movie. Like feels like a great summary of what we love as R&B fans.
So I really love, there's a song by this artist Couché called Single AF that I think is like a really great record. She's singing, like her vocals are crazy, but she's also rapping. And I feel like that's a really popular thing right now. And I'm gonna really have to show Victoria Monet love because I love Ass Like That. When you talk about being clever, like that song is insane. It's so clever and so strong. So those would be my top 2. And I do love Hers Damage, but Tone already said it, so I'll try to switch it up.
One of my last questions as we get ready to wrap up is, what do you think makes, we've mentioned a couple of times here something being timeless, like we just said it about the best part. What makes a song a timeless R&B song? Like what is the element that kind of maybe not ensures, but that lends itself towards us still listening to that song in 20 years?
For me, I would say when I'm thinking, if I ask myself the question, is this song timeless? I think a lot of it would be eliminated if I hear any phrases that are in this year in particular, or next year, or the year before. I feel like timeless songs seem to have very very worldly words that aren't just specific to any region, aren't specific to any time frame. I feel like that will be the things we would still say, in 20, 30, 40, however many years. I also feel like the melody has to be super strong and classic. And those 2 things can say a lot. I also feel like production wise, I think timeless songs are maybe like the best 5 instruments instead of being like so filled with all of these ideas. I think the producer also has to do their part in making it each instrument matters. Even the instrument has its own hook. So I feel like those are some qualities that I would look for if I'm gonna name something timeless. So good job, her and Daniel Caesar, for sure.
Joyce, what do you think? What makes a song timeless?
Man, I've been trying to think about that because, of course, like I want to make timeless records. But I guess too, I think it's like a feeling. It's just, I feel like an unexplainable feeling, and I agree. Like she did hit it in the nail that it just doesn't work for like jargon words that are used right now. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. But I do think it has a lot to do with just it's a feeling.
I agree with Joyce and Victoria. I mean, it's definitely a feeling thing. And to piggyback on what Victoria was saying, like I think you got to stay away from certain words and like certain slang or something like that that's just gonna put it in a box. The producers definitely got to do their thing to just keep it on a standout. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like anything else. But yeah, I also think that you know those timeless songs is when you're really talking about real life situations. When you're very vulnerable, it could be pain, it could be joy, but it's personal to you, and I think those are the ones that really relate because as human beings, that's our escape is music. So you get those timeless songs when you want to escape and listen to something when you're feeling a certain way. So you gotta hit those emotions right on the nail.
So Victoria has mentioned a couple of times what streaming has opened up for artists and singers, subgenres and niche styles of R&B music, that's expanded far beyond just radio airplay, which I think is responsible in part for the resurgence of R&B. So with that in mind, I'm curious, what do you guys think what does the future of R&B look like, do you think?
Man, I think what I love is just everyone's just it seems like people are just doing what feels right, and every like new song that I'm listening to, it doesn't sound like everything else. I read and noticed a lot of people saying that music kind of R&B music started to sound similar, where it was just a vibe and it was kind of whispering. And I don't know, a lot of the songs that I've been hearing lately, they're feeling really urgent, they're feeling very unique and just different, and I think people are unapologetic with how they're approaching things. So I hope that that continues to be the journey that R&B artists take on, because I love that that's what I've been seeing lately.
I really think to what Joyce is saying, like people are really they're not afraid to try any new stuff. Like there was a point in time where people were like, oh, you need to do it like this, and you need to fit in, and you whatever, right? But I feel like more people are kind of like, you know what? I'm not paying attention to that, and I feel like that's where the best music, that's that revolutionary music, that's that. Hey, we're gonna go against the grain. It's not the way it has always been. Like I'm gonna try something new. So that's when stuff like that blows up. So I feel like this next generation is just on top of that, and I feel like we're all on top of that. So
I love that. Victoria?
Uh, I would say the future of R&B. I feel like there's always elements of R&B that can be traced back to the past. They always say there's nothing new under the sun. So I feel like there's going to be some of something we've already heard in it to make the foundation of an R&B, but it's going to add new elements, maybe, with all of the beat machines that are out, all of the new sounds, it's going to combine some other element that we haven't heard to make a new version of R&B. But you can always look to the past for the foundation and security of the heart of R&B. But yeah, like Tone said, I think we are going to be a part of that movement, and also excited to see what the younger generation does too, because there's so much creativity in the world, and so much we're seeing so much online, and I feel like all of that is going to end up filtering itself into music. So it's going to be an exciting time.
To that end, about there being so much online, and there being so many opportunities to find, like, to do things in different ways, do you all feel like it's more of a challenge? And Victoria, this may not be a you question because you've established yourself for already for quite some time, but Joyce, and Tone, is it more of a challenge, do you feel like, to kind of help cut through and stand out and to figure out how you're going to set yourself apart and how you're going to establish your own identity as a singer and a performer? Tone, I'll start with you.
I don't think it's a challenge. I think we just gotta also just keep in mind, like, just be real to who we are, as our personalities, what we grew up on listening to, what we just genuinely gravitate towards and love. And I think when you stick with that and you just give it 110%, like there's nothing that's gonna stop that.
Yeah, I agree. I have a tendency to compare myself, or just kind of reflect on, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? This other person like doing so well. But I always have to come back to who I am and what feels right. and just do my part to keep up with what's going on, and just get inspiration from other people.
Okay, good. That's positive to hear. I'm glad because I've often thought like, wow, if I was starting out today, whew, but I love that. I love that both of you are like, nah, this is what it's gonna be. Um, last question for everybody. I'm giving you a choice of two. Either what's the first song you heard that made you want to be an artist, or dream collaboration? Victoria.
ah, I don't know what song it was, but I know what person it was, and it was definitely Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, the magic of that man on stage. I'm not saying anything about personal life, but him as an artist and his music, it was astronomical. Right. So I can't deny the inspiration that he instilled in me to just want to do that and inspire people the way that he did.
Tone. Either first song or performer who made you want to be an artist, or your dream collaboration.
cause dream collabs are endless. So I gotta go with the first performer, and I definitely agree with Victoria. It's definitely Michael Jackson. The song, I want to say it was Human Nature. When I heard that as a kid, I didn't know what he was talking about, what he was saying, but I was like, yo, this is jamming. Like, what is happening right now? So that was the first song that kind of made me, yeah.
I love that. Joyce?
Mine was Tamia, You Put a Move on My Heart. I was
Mm.
really little and I had no idea what she was talking about, but for some reason, like, it hit me really hard, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to touch people the way she can with her voice. So,
Good answer. Also, shout out to the common denominator there, which is Quincy D. Light Jones. You know, you
yes.
always acknowledge,
Yep, yep.
always acknowledge Q. Any last thoughts that you guys want to share? First of all, thank you for your time and for your candid answers. I appreciate it. Any last thoughts you guys want to share on R&B now, R&B then, music in general, what it means, what it is, how it feels? Any last thoughts? Anyone, y'all?
I would just say for anyone listening that's aspiring to be an artist or thinking about pursuing R&B or trying to name what it is that you do in a genre, I would just remind you to not look at the numbers because there's so much data that is thrown in our face and reasons why this would and wouldn't happen because of numbers. Remember, music is not a number. It's a universal language, and as long as your heart is true to that and it's what you love to do, you just keep following that. Forget the numbers.
Don't chase the algorithm. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. Tone or Joyce, any last thoughts?
I just want to say, R&B is in great hands. I'm super excited with everybody that's pushing and in the genre right now. I just can't wait to see what comes out of it. Also, I had just dropped a project called FWM, so y'all can check that out. But
Hey.
R&B is in great hands. And that's all I gotta say. I'm excited for the future.
I would say the same. I'm excited. I feel like Victoria said, we live in this social media heavy world, and it can be very discouraging. And I can't imagine like being an artist and just coming out and trying to get people to notice me amongst everyone. But yes, to stay true to yourself. And my album is also out, so please go check out Overgrown.
I want to thank each of the three of you for your time. Victoria, Tone, Joyce. You guys check them out. If you don't know who they are, now you know a little bit about them. Please go and check them out. And thank you to Billboard, and thank you all for being here with us for the next wave of R&B.